The way we bring presence into the coaching conversation is in two ways. One, we make inner moves that bring us to presence, that access presence within ourselves. So presence is in part about self-work. That's the coaching competency part. The second thing is we make relational moves, what I call relational moves. These are things that could be videotaped or observed by others that invite the client into presence. So the combination of the being, the self-work, and the doing, the relational moves, both of those involve presence. The outcome of that is that the client becomes more present and develops this meta-competency that supports anything else they're working with. So something to see here is that when Kendall begins to describe a situation that's sort of out there in the world, that all of a sudden it's real. And there's a choice point, like we could keep talking about it as sort of a theoretical, like where do you do that and when does that happen and what's the narrative and what effect does it have, which is a conversation about out there. Or we can say, how is this showing up for you right now? But the nervous system, it doesn't know the difference between what's out there and what's real and in here. So when we're describing a situation, it's real, it's tangible. The emotions and the sensations and all the aspects of that experience are live and available to us right here, right now. And in presence-based coaching, we're saying that's where the work is, that's where the juice is. This is the only moment that we can work with this in a real way as opposed to a hypothetical cognitive way. And I validated both her competency at observing herself and her competency at the behavior that's causing her suffering. Now that's sort of paradoxical, but it can be really helpful to see that our nervous system is really good at doing what it does, even when we wish it were doing something different. Making sense? Okay. So what's happening here in this conversation does relate to what's happening out there, but if we organize around there, if we organize around what's happening out there, it's sort of theoretical and cognitive and hypothetical. And we can create a plan, but at the end of our hour together, she hasn't actually done anything different. She hasn't built any competency. She's built an idea about a competency, but she hasn't built an actual competency. And the only place, the only time we can build an actual competency is right here, right now. Ultimately out there, if she wants to stop second guessing her big visions, she has to build the competency of recognizing, oh, here's the second guessing voice, and in the moment making a choice to turn away from it and not give it any energy. And that sounds simple. Hypothetically, it's simple. But when you've been practicing something for 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 years, it's real hard to just stop it. And so the meta-competency is the witnessing. To say, oh, here it is right now, that's that second guessing voice. I see it. You catch the habit in the act. And in that moment, there's a choice. What do we do with it? So again, like I'm always listening, what's the language, what's the way in, what's his language or his structure of interpretation that's available to us as a resource here that we can work with. And he really started off by saying story, and story implies it's not an absolute truth. So he's starting in a way from a position of strength in that he's resourceful at least some of the time in seeing that this story is not something that's ultimately true about him. And so in a way what we're doing here is teasing apart, like when somebody is in a story that feels monolithic, like happens with him some of the time, one of the moves to make is to create a little bit of space in between the person and the story. It's that, again, it's stepping out from the bell jar and putting the story out here. So that's really the questioning about, well, how do you know it's a story? And then he has evidence. And so we've differentiated between two states.